I don't see anything on the screen. Did I still go? Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me first start out by apologizing for a few technical difficulties we had getting kicked off this morning. Hopefully we got them remedied, and you're seeing my lovely face right now live on your screen. Also, yesterday we did, I think, a fantastic show. We had some technical difficulties as well towards the middle of that show. We are going to attempt to put the full show up on YouTube later today. You can watch the archived version of yesterday's show if you missed any of it on America's Voice News. Use their either any streaming device like Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. Download the free app on your iPhone or Android. Check it out, and you can see our archive show from yesterday. I think you'll find it very interesting, and I hope we have an interesting show for you today. We got several topics we're going to talk about. Most of them, if not all of them, centered around the rioting, the protesting, all that mixed bag of stuff here. But the first one we're going to talk about is white instigators causing mayhem. Secondly, we're going to talk about Joe Biden and his attempts, and I do stress attempts, to contrast between he and Donald Trump. And we'll get into that as well. And then I'm going to bring you a story that just warms my heart for many reasons, not the least of which is what this sheriff said. But the fact that he is a Florida boy, born and bred, as far as I know, the legendary in our area, Grady Judd, and what he said about what happened in his county and what's not going to happen, I should say. And he sounds like what a real sheriff and true patriot would sound like. And we're going to try to get to that towards the end of the show. But we start with this whole concept or idea that a lot of what you see as far as the rioting, the non-peaceful parts of the protest, are at least being led and by white instigators. And there's some definite truth to that. And it's not just Antifa, although they certainly are a main role in it. And we'll talk about that. This comes to you from a Washington Post story. In some protests, local officials say white instigators are causing mayhem. And it starts out by, "What did I tell you?" a voice cried out as the camera recording mayhem in downtown Pittsburgh settled on a white man clad in all black smashing the windows of a police vehicle. "It's not black people," the onlooker called to the crowd before addressing the vandal directly. "What are you doing?" Well, what he was doing, authorities later alleged, and the video shows, it's hard to be alleged when you see it in the video, was inciting riots on Saturday as the city, like dozens of others across America, was swept up in a sustained unrest over the death of a black man. You know what happened in Wisconsin. Now, first of all, the guy's name, what is his name here again? George Floyd. I want to get it right. It's not even about George Floyd anymore, really. I mean, we're 7 days after the fact, 8 days now, after Mr. Floyd was tragically killed by police officers, murdered, really. There's really not much debate about that. But what is happening in our nation now really has very little to do, if anything, with Mr. Floyd. Even his own brother came out and said, "Stop this. This has nothing to do with Floyd burning down your own neighborhood," so to speak, across the country. Demonstrations have spread from Minneapolis where a white police officer, well, we know exactly what happened. As I said, we know what happened. We don't have to get too deep into that because we already know. Tragic, terrible. Absolutely, the police officer involved should be prosecuted to the fullest extent possible under the law. And really, the other three that kind of stood by and enabled him to continue to doing that need to be prosecuted as well. Some of which, I like how they say some of which, let's back up here, was swept up in the death because demonstrators have spread, some of which have been looted and set ablaze, talking about the cities. I like how they do that, some of which, when I say like it, I don't appreciate it. It's really misleading. It's amazing to me, the reluctance, the struggle, if you will, that the mainstream media has in just calling things what they are. Now, there are peaceful protesters. There's no question about that. But the reluctance to call rioting, and looting, and anarchist, I don't get. Why can't you just say, look, here's people protesting, and it was hijacked by people over here, and call the looters what they are? Why is there a reluctance to do that? And I can tell you part of it is it doesn't fit the narrative. This looting, and I talked about this yesterday, this looting is by design. It is absolutely by design. Now, do I mean that every single person bum rushing a store is a planned thing? No. But trust me on this. It is being orchestrated to give permission, if you will, or incentive for other Americans, Black Americans primarily, to loot and pillage these stores. And I'm not excusing them at all. In fact, I'm going to condemn them very directly here in just a moment. But I want to play a video. This is actually from, I believe, out in California. We started to play it yesterday, but we ran out of time. It's an interesting video because you have a young Black woman trying to peacefully protest, and she confronts some Antifa people for spray painting a building about Black Lives Matter, and they're white. This video is very revealing and very telling. Let's play it right now.
I can't believe that. Sit and look. I want you to know this is not. Don't police people's way of
Let me tell you this.
themselves.
This is not a Black woman who's putting Black Lives Matter. I just want you to know that right, but y'all doing that for us, and we ain't asked you to do that. Listen, don't spray stuff on here when they gonna blame Black people for this, and Black people didn't do it. There's a Black person, but if we wanted you to do it, we would have asked. They not gonna show y'all faces when they see that on their building. They gonna blame that on us. Y'all are part of the problem. News come on, they gonna say we did that. We didn't do that. Stuff like this ain't right. Stuff like this ain't right. That's what the problem is. We out here standing together peacefully, protesting without any problems. You got people of all races spraying on buildings talking about Black Lives Matter. That ain't even us. You got police officers coming to a peaceful protest spraying gas on us. We ain't even did nothing. Don't let the media fool you. When they see the vandalism on these places, know that it wasn't us. And when you see stuff like that, you're supposed to stand up and say something. Don't spray on these people's buildings. That's not our message. That's not helping nothing. And then putting it on us, and then want to argue with us and say somebody Black asked you to spray. We don't need nobody to do nothing for us. That's why we out here doing it ourselves.
I got to tell you, I admire the courage of that young woman to stand up to those people. And did you hear what she said at the end there, that they gave excuse? Well, some Black people asked us to do it. I mean, last time I checked, George Soros wasn't Black. But anyway, it proves to you what I've been telling you all along, that the progressive leftists are hijacking any type of actual peaceful protest. Now, I'm not excusing the people who are looting in any way, shape, or form. But you, Black America, are you listening? Are you getting truly woke? You're being played by white progressive anarchists who care absolutely nothing about this country, making it better. They want to obliterate America. They want to do away with the U.S. Constitution. And we as Americans, regardless of our color of our skin, cannot allow this to happen. If we do, it is, quite frankly, on us all, and we will all suffer from it. Police identified, back to this gentleman in Pittsburgh, police identified Brian Jordan Bartles. Listen to the description of this guy. 20 of Allison Park, Pennsylvania. Talk about white privilege. I'm sure he had it. Look what he did with it. As having kicked off the escalation in Pittsburgh, one of several examples of peaceful assemblies against police violence, creating opportunities for pandemonium. So I see these looters going in. Now, as I say, I'm not excusing them. And I want to ask a question here. and I know this will probably get me in some trouble. I'm not inciting this. I'm not advocating this. I'm simply asking a question. Should looters be shot? Really? I mean, there was a time when if you looted, regardless of why, if you looted businesses, you were in danger of being shot. And you still are, actually. People, especially here in Florida, and we're going to talk about our good friend Grady Judd in a little bit, but in Florida with the stand your ground law, let me just tell you, if you come here and you try to loot a business, that business owner has every legal right in this state to shoot you dead. So just keep that in mind. So I asked that. I want to give you a quick example. We're not going to get too deep into it. I don't know if you remember it. This didn't get a lot of publicity at the time, although it should have. Back during the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, which devastated like Puerto Rico and much of the Caribbean, there was an island down there. It's called St. Martin, and half of the island basically is a French colony, so to speak, or protectorate territory, and the other half is Dutch, basically 50-50. And the island was devastated, much like Puerto Rico was by Hurricane Irma. Well, there was looting happening in it. There were people who escaped from prison and all that because, as I say, the island was fairly devastated. But so both sides, the French and the Dutch, sent troops in. The looting stopped on one portion of the island. I think it was the Dutch side, I'm pretty sure. And on the other side, the French side, it continued on total mayhem, even though both sides had troops. The difference, and I'm just stating fact, I'm not making a big boast of opinion about it, was the Dutch, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. The Dutch started killing looters, literally started shooting them, and made an announcement that if you loot, you're probably going to die. And the military shot looters on it. Guess what happened? The looting stopped literally overnight, in a couple of hours, basically. And it was people going around looting with machetes and stuff. So it stopped completely. And the French side, it kept going and going and going, and people lost their lives and everything else. I'm just saying that actually that type of response, whether it's ethical, moral, all that kind of stuff, it definitely works. It definitely works. While the heart, and if they try to come in your home or try to burn your business, don't you think you have a right to defend your person and property? The Constitution, the Second Amendment, love it, hate it, whatever. This is the reason for the Second Amendment, by the way, is to protect you against this very thing. While at the heart of the gatherings have been an appeal for racial justice, they also have attracted a diverse array of people with other grievances and agendas who have co-opted the moment, accelerating what has been a national unraveling as the country reels from a pandemic that has put more than 40 million people out of work. So this is just going to exacerbate the unemployment situation. But the language that they use in these articles just trips me out. Diverse array of people with other grievances and agendas. So you got people out there protesting the death of Mr. Floyd, right? And then you got a diverse array of people with other grievances and agendas. And I mean, why don't you just call it like it is? You got peaceful, people legitimately protesting peacefully and every right to do so. And I'm with them 100%. And then you got this group of people that are instigating riot, mayhem, really insurrection. I mean, treasonous stuff. And that they simply call them a diverse array of people. They're thugs, hooligans, outlaws, everything but a diverse array of people with grievances and agendas. They're just what they are. I mean, I could call them what I think they are, but I probably shouldn't use that language. In most American cities, people of all races appear to be participating in the violence, vandalism, and looting, particularly in Minneapolis, where a crowd burned the police department's 3rd precinct building. This is not getting enough attention, in my opinion. Last week, and vandals were seen smashing windows and stealing items from stores. The fact that they burned down a police precinct, how can this happen in America? Now, let me say, there is no defense whatsoever for what happened to Mr. Floyd by a white police officer and some Asians and others that were around. There is no excuse for that. I have no sympathy for them. they need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And I will say something just for clarification. Be careful about asking for first-degree murder. Now, am I saying that they shouldn't get the death penalty if they have one in there? No, I'm not. But first-degree murder, be careful, because what you don't want to do, just from a legal standpoint, you don't want to try to over-prosecute someone. And by that, I mean first-degree murder is a very clear you essentially have to prove intent, that a person pre-planned to commit a homicide. And it's very difficult to prove in a case like this to a police officer, because he could simply say, I was doing what I thought was right. I'm not saying that's true. And the man died in the process. It's hard to prove that he premeditatedly went out, and he may have, but it's going to be very difficult to prove that. So be careful what you're asking for, because it could backfire on you. I just want to say that. But burning this police precinct, I don't care what the white officer did or any officer, we cannot allow a police precinct to be burned to the ground, because if you allow, and it obviously happened, to allow that to happen invites total chaos, total mayhem, and the innocent will be the ones that absolutely pay the highest price. So I lay that right there. You can blame Donald Trump. Oh yeah, blame Donald Trump. But really and truly, allowing that precinct to burn to the ground, I blame the local elected officials like the mayor of Minneapolis and those types of things. Think about this. People want to call to action Donald Trump. They want him to, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But these governors said, when it comes to running our economy and keeping it shut down, we don't need you to overstep your authority. We got this. But when it comes to their own communities and trying to control the mayhem, we need presidential leadership. You can't have it both ways. And we have a republic. We don't have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. And let me just clarify this for some of you out there that don't understand this. One of the ways that the constitutional republic works is that the closest government is the most potentially effective one, and the one that affects your daily lives. So the last resort is the president, not the first resort. The first one should be your local mayor, commissioner, right on up to representatives, and of course the governor. The president is the last line of defense, not the first. That's not how it works. But some people don't seem to, because that's why I battle ignorance and apathy daily. We don't seem to be educating people on what really matters anymore. Back to this article. Multiracial coalitions have marched peacefully, but in some cities, local officials have noted that black protesters have struggled to maintain peaceful protests in the face of young white men joining the fray, and women, like there were women in that one video, seemingly determined to commit mayhem. Once again, why are they couching their language? Seemingly determined to commit mayhem. They are committing mayhem. And it says, so as to give the impression of having a certain quality. Here's seemingly. I decided to look up the word seemingly and see if it applies. Here's the definition. So as to give the impression of having a certain quality, apparently. So it's seemingly. Show these pictures. I got a couple of pictures here of Antifa or other aggrieved people in the streets. Now, is it seemingly that they are, or is it certain? To me, it is certain that you have people taking advantage of this that care nothing about America, care nothing about Mr. Floyd, and darn sure don't care about your neighborhood. And they are progressive anarchists, and they're all over the world. And the Democratic Party, not all Democrats, but the Democratic Party leadership is behind these people. At very least, they're scared to speak out on it. I am not. In a footage that spread widely online, a man identified as Bartles, this is the guy in Pittsburgh, listen to this, who faces charges of vandalism and rioting, wore a bandana embezzled with the symbol of the Animal Liberation Front. So he's out there, a leaderless, I'm not sure that's true. I bet Soros funds them too. A leaderless international resistance movement that pushes for animal rights. So I guess they do that by being animals themselves. In the footage, he raised his middle fingers to black protesters who begged him to stop. At Bortles' home in Pittsburgh suburb, officers found spray paint, firearms, according to the arrest warrant reviewed by the Washington Post. Let me just tell you, and I have no qualms about saying this. If this young man is guilty of everything they're saying he is, this person, in my opinion, should never, and I'm going to say it again, should never see the light of freedom again. This person should be locked away as a traitor, treasonous insurrectionist, using every possible law from federal down to local to put him behind bars forever. If we did a few of this, made some actual examples of real hooks, crooks, and thugs like this dude really is, then maybe we could stop this. But he'll probably won't even do any jail time. Probably won't even do any jail time. But in my opinion, he should never see the light of freedom again because he doesn't believe in it. How does the man deserve freedom when he doesn't even believe in it? I mean, I don't know. Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Pedito, and of course he's a Democrat. You notice that all of these places who are like bemoaning Trump, that all these places where, or at least most of them, are being run by Democrats. Did you see what happened in New York City last night, man? I mean, give me a break. There's no excuse for this, but it's allowed to happen. But the mayor of Pittsburgh, Mayor Bill Peduta, said, "We came together as Pittsburghers and supported a First Amendment right to gather and say more must be done, and then it was hijacked." And I have no doubt that he's right about that part of it. But here's the problem we're having out there. We have people, when you talk about looters, rioters, and everything else, there are people who are amoral and there are people who are immoral. And there is a difference. I wanted to look it up to make sure I was right on this. Amoral is when a person is not concerned with what is right and wrong. That's this Bortles guy. These Antifa people, this animal rights, they don't care about right or wrong. It doesn't enter into their brain. It's not like they don't know. Believe me, a lot of these young radicals that are on the progressive left, they're actually well-educated people. They know the difference between right or wrong. They just don't care because their ends, justifies any means. And they are for total chaos and anarchy. They just are. And there's a, what they call it, a dark, I forgot the exact term. I've talked about it before, but there's this dark philosophy that the only way to improve man's condition is to basically burn the whole thing down, period, and start from scratch. And they truly believe they're self-righteous in this. So an amoral person is not concerned with what's right or wrong, this young man here. Immoral, on the other hand, is when a person is not following the accepted standards of morality. These are the looters. So you have the amoral people who don't care and are leading and just won't cause mayhem. They're amoral. Immoral people are the ones going in there bum rush and take advantage of it, getting flat screen TVs, regardless of race. It doesn't really matter. If you're immoral, you're immoral. This highlights the main difference between amoral and immoral is the presence of intent or lack of it. The people that are amoral have an intent. They absolutely. And the immoral people, they don't have the morality to understand right from wrong anymore. They should, but they don't. They're not grounded in any kind of faith-based deal. They couldn't possibly be. And so, of course, now, and we'll talk more about it in a minute, but President Trump, is accused of being photo op and everything because he holds a Bible. Now, you could debate whether President Trump is the most moral man or not. That's a whole nother different subject. But I don't see how you can debate that we have lost our morals to a great extent. And the Democratic Party has embraced both of these. This is what's amazing to me. The Democratic Party, now you keep in mind, if you're a Democrat out there, I'm just telling you the facts. You don't have to like them. But your party, my party, used to be my party, has embraced both the immoral and the amoral. They have embraced and defended both. And it is just wrong. But that's where we're at. Some local officials were even more blunt after reviewing footage talking about these outside instigators. After reviewing footage of this weekend's events, Jenny Durkin, the mayor of Seattle, said she feared the black community would be shoulder the blame for havoc caused by others. And she's probably right about that. But I got more to say about her in just a minute. Durkin, of course, a Democrat, said It's striking how many of the people who were doing the looting and stealing and the fires over the weekend were young white males. She might be right about this, but here's the thing. This woman, Miss Durkin, and I say this with every confidence in the world, has zero, I'm telling you, zero credibility on any of these issues. And you are being hijacked out there by the progressive leftists. Are you really listening? Black America, let me just say it, you know, and I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. And I don't pretend to speak for any particular person. I'm just telling you as an American citizen who has some understanding. I talked about it in depth yesterday. Hopefully we can get our full show up from yesterday. But Black America, are you listening? Because you're being hijacked by these progressive leftists. You really are. Some of you, those of you who have every right to stand up for what happened to Mr. Floyd, are being hijacked by the progressive left. There's no doubt about it. Are you truly going to get woke? Biden has been hijacked as well, by the way. And to his defense, I don't even know if he can spell hijack right now. But the Democratic Party is being run by progressive leftists who don't care about racial issues other than trying to inflame them, who want to keep they're the party of the poor, so they want you to be as poor as possible. They want you to be on the plantation. I'm just going to tell it like it is, man. Get truly what you can hate Trump all you want. I'm not even advocating, if you're a Black American, that you necessarily vote for Donald Trump. I think you should, but you make your own decision. But let me tell you, whatever you do, go with your eyes wide open, for God's sakes. You don't have to look what's happening around you. Wake up, America, period, and see that we need, let me back up. We need a two-party system. We need a true, strong, good, moral Democratic Party. I'm not advocating against that, but we don't have that. And I'm not saying Republicans are all that in a bag of chips either. Republicans need to do a much better job at actually going in and tackling some of these issues instead of just ignoring them. They do. There's no question about that. But I can tell you right now, if you're putting your faith in the Democratic Party in its current thing, you're not truly woke. There is no way. And like I say, I'm not even advocating you necessarily vote for Donald Trump. But if you vote for the current group of Democrats, you are voting against the very thing that granted us all freedom, or that guarantees our freedom, I should say, in the first place, the U.S. Constitution. It's an imperfect document. We're an imperfect people, but we're the closest thing I've seen to true life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that has ever existed, including this very moment. So, wake up. That's all I'm saying. President Trump on Monday evening said in a Rose Garden address that he stands with demonstrators who condemn Floyd's death. You can debate his sincerity if you want to. That's up to you. I think he's very sincere. As peaceful protesters were cleared with flash bombs, explosives, and tear gas so he could pose for a photograph in front of St. John's Episcopal Church. So they're accusing him of being, a politician posing for a photograph. I'm not saying he didn't. But think about this. What a sick thing to say, that the only reason that the president of the United States of America walked across a park that any of us should be able to walk through peacefully to a church that is over 200 years old, where every president over the last 200 years has stopped to worship, and it being burned. I don't care. You can hate Donald Trump all you want, but Black people especially, man, come on. A burning of a church? You of all people should know how tragic and hateful that actually is. I don't care who's the color of the church, but to burn a church in this country is a big deal. And there's a reason why white supremacists burned Black churches, because they knew it would hit at the heart of the Black community. I don't sugarcoat that in any way. Matter of fact, I condemn it wholeheartedly. And I've explained the history of that in the past. Maybe we could go into it another time. But to burn a church in America is about as bad as it gets. And so for the media to say anything less than condemning that, keep in mind, Lincoln went to that church, for God's sakes, to actually pray for the end of the Civil War. And now we have, and I'm not accusing Black folks. As a matter of fact, I think it was probably white Antifa or animal rights people. They they put graffiti, and I try to calm down because this just really burns me. They put graffiti on the Lincoln Memorial, one of the most sacred places in the entire country. The one place, the one president, if there ever was a president that we all can come behind basically and support. He was flawed. He did some things that destroyed parts of the Constitution. I'm not, but really and truly, when you look at the whole circumstances, Abraham Lincoln is one president where both sides seem to invoke and come together. And for the Lincoln Memorial, think of all the great things that have happened at the footsteps of that memorial. For black, white, and every color of the rainbow. For that to be graffitied, I don't know what, I have basically, and it's rarely me say, I have no words. I can't tell you what I really would like to see these people that did that done to. I would probably get banned for life. Algorithm would probably have me. But like what they paint up there, I'm tired. Are you tired yet? Yeah, I'm tired. I am tired. I'm tired of our country being stolen from us all. Americans of every race, creed, or color. That's what's happening in the streets of America right now. That's what's happening to peaceful protests being hijacked. Our country is being taken from us by people who don't give a damn about any of us. Period. They want to see us all perish under the heels of fanaticism. They do. Black, white, that's one thing. We will be together. On Chicago's west side, a liquor store was looted for hours. I'm going to close with this and we'll move on to another story. I say this because I understand where this gentleman's coming from, but he needs to get woke, and I'll explain in a minute. On Chicago's west side, a liquor store was looted for hours and then torched at about 9 p.m. Sunday. The air was filled with blinding smoke as Glenn Johnson, 45, stood in the doorway of his graphic design business across the street, saying he had watched looters so committed to the undertaking that they worked in crews of 3, each completing a specific task. Most cars have out-of-town license plates, he says. And this is the part I want you to pay the most close attention to. Mr. Johnson said, I don't condone this, but I don't condemn it. I understand where it's coming from, but the thing is, we've gone so far into this, everything is going to be gone. He says, I don't condone this, but I don't condemn it. Well, Mr. Johnson, let me just tell you, sir, you better start. You better start condemning it, because as Benjamin Franklin told us many moons ago, if we don't hang together, we will surely hang separately. So basically, if we don't stand up as Americans, I'm not saying forget about the past, I'm saying learn from it. I'm saying look to the future. I'm saying look at the reality of what the alternative is. You know, at our very worst, the United States is the best alternative we got, and at our best, it is unlimited. But if we don't stand up, regardless of what we feel about politics, I'm not even trying to be Democrat, Republican, none of that. If we as Americans don't stand up and say enough, by God, is enough, you can't attack the Lincoln Memorial. You can't burn churches in this country. You can't do it. You can't burn down police precincts no matter what. You can't torch people's businesses. You can't go into their homes. And that happened in D.C., by the way. We just had 4 police officers. I'm just breaking details when I came in. Shot, I believe, in St. Louis. I don't know all the details of it. I pray for them and their families. If we don't stand together, we will perish separately for sure. There's just no question about that. Anyway, enough on that. I'm going to move along. I want to talk about this Biden trying to contrast to Mr. Trump. Donald Trump told governors they could, this is a Politico article, Biden cranks up contrast with Trump. Donald Trump told governors they could look like weak jerks if they don't dominate protesters and called for retribution. Now, you could make a case that that's not something a president should say, that Democrats, or in this case, they mostly Democrat governors, look like weak jerks because they let people just burn, pillage. What's next? The raping? They're going to start, raping and pillaging? That's coming. They've already murdered people. I mean, it's coming. You keep letting it happen, it's coming. It's like that broken window pane theory. The worse you let it get, the worse it's going to get. I get it. If you want to criticize President Trump for his language, I get it. But let me just tell you, there are those of us out here, and I am one of them. I love Donald J. Trump for that reason, one of many others, but I love the fact that he is just telling it like it. He's saying, and you know this is true, and some of you who don't even like the president know this is true. How many times have you watched these mealy-mouthed politicians of both political parties just tell you what you want to hear? And you sat there and just wanted to hold up a sign and go, BS. How many times have you wanted to shoot the TV, throw something at the TV? Probably have, How many times? Donald Trump is the first president in my memory, probably going back, way before I was living. We had a few maybe that, of course, you didn't have the media like we have now, that actually just tells you what you know and heck you want to say. You were sitting there wanting to say it, and by God, Donald Trump said it. And I'm telling you right now, I know a lot of you snowflakes don't like this. A lot of you leftists, some Democrats in general, some never Trumpers don't get it. You never will. But there are a lot of us, I am not alone in this, that are just saying, God, it's about time we had a politician, and Donald Trump by this time is to a certain extent a politician. Just tell us the dadgum truth. Don't sit there and sugarcoat it. They talk about President Trump lying all the time. But when he tells the absolute truth, he's unpresidential. And I'm sick of it. I'm telling you right now, go for it, Mr. President. I don't care what you tweet anymore. I really don't. I may object to it from time to time. But in general, go for it. We need hard, unvarnished truth, baby. And it starts right here at JMT as well. You can get that here. And we're getting it from the president. I actually like it. Joe Biden held an event with big city mayors grappling with violent unrest to talk about their needs and pledge police reforms. Now, interestingly enough, and even Biden's people, I'm going to read you a tweet here from one of his campaign people. I happened to be watching this live. I was watching Fox yesterday afternoon, and they went to it live. So I decided I was watching their little taglines. I like to see what they write under it. So I thought, well, I'll switch over to CNN and see what they're having to say. I switched over. They weren't playing it. This is Joe Biden, the poster child for them, right? The guy that's going to defeat Donald Trump doing his first real live event, in public, in somewhat of a public situation. And they weren't even playing it. So I said, well, maybe MSNBC is. I switched to MSNBC, and guess what? They weren't playing it either. Only Fox News that I could tell was actually playing it of the major cable news networks. And so this guy, Ron Kallan, one of Biden's top advisors, had a theme. He tweeted out, Biden in the basement. He said, before one person at me over why at Joe Biden needs to be in public. Now, these are tweets, so they don't come across too good. Plug more. I beg you to tweet at MSNBC and at CNN and ask him why they didn't carry his two public events today. So Biden was in public twice, and CNN and MSNBC didn't even give it any time at all. And this guy's saying why? I know why. It's better. It's not because they're anti-Biden in any stretch. They're pro-Biden. The reason why they didn't play them is because they're actually for Biden. And they realize that playing a live Joe Biden is a bad thing. It's not a good look. They'd rather play, edited clips of him and talk about it in news stories like this. So, be careful what you wish for, Mr. What was his name again? I'll make sure I give him credit here. Ron Klain. Be careful what you wish for. There's a reason. They're actually for your candidate, and they don't play him live because they know how lousy he is live. And Fox News, whether they did it on purpose or not, actually played the whole thing live. And if you watched it, man, it was a fiasco. So they're not playing it live because guess what? Just like a lot of other things, you're being manipulated. You Democrats are being manipulated. I looked up the word manipulation just in case I'd had it wrong, but I got it right here. It says the action of manipulating someone in a clever or unscrupulous way. That's what's happening to the mainstream media Democratic Party, to you Trump derangement syndrome people out there. You're being manipulated. You don't have to like Donald Trump. Just admit that you're being manipulated. Monday's split screen delivered a sharp contrast in temperament that you didn't see on CNN, by the way, and style between the current president and the presumptive Democratic nominee, and it was by design. You watch the video. It's about 8 or 10 minutes long. There's a couple different ones of Biden, and you tell me it wasn't a total disaster. I mean, he didn't make a coherent thought in little excerpts, yeah, but the total of it was like, what the heck's going on? Biden was, here's how he was doing. He was giving his speech like this. He was going, and he never looked at the camera the whole time, and he had his mask down on his chin most of the time, and he kept didn't know if he should pull it up or down. It was a fiasco. No wonder they didn't show it live. For former Vice President, Monday served as the important moment. This is why they don't show the video. Now they can write about it, make it look good. Important moment, perhaps the most significant for Biden since the coronavirus lockdown started. If it was significant, watch it, form your own opinion. As nationwide protests and vandalism blazed across America's large cities, Biden sought to use the convergence of crisis to shake off the image of him being locked away in Wilmington basement, probably trying to shake off the image of you ain't black if you don't vote for me or something like that. Project a different style of leadership and take on a mantle of leader of the Democratic opposition. Man, watch the video and tell me you're not being manipulated, man. Go back to that definition I gave you. While Trump went to secure a bunker below the White House, I'm going to break this paragraph down, man. This paragraph is, it's pitiful. But while Trump went to secure a bunker below the White House when protesters gathered outside the weekend, Donald Trump was told by Secret Service to do that. You don't really have much of a choice in that. And even their own reports say he was down there for a few minutes till they realized that the place wasn't going to get bum rushed. That is actually prudent. Did you really want the White House to? Because I'm telling you, if they'd have charged that White House, it would not have ended well for those people. And how horrific that would be. So the Secret Service acted absolutely correct, but they're making it sound like Trump was running away. You really believe that? Biden intentionally chose to take an opposite tack, meeting Sunday with demonstrators near his Delaware home. Biden's campaign aides pledged to bail out jailed protesters on Twitter. So while Donald Trump is calling some of these governors that let your homes and businesses be burned jerks, Biden is forming a coalition of people to bail those people out. Because it's not like a lot. Let me think. The police, now there may be some exceptions to this, but by and large, there weren't that many arrests considering what happened. But those that were actually arrested were looting, burning, and pillaging. They weren't the peaceful protesters. So Biden, make no mistake about it, in general, if he's bailing people out that were arrested, he's bailing out Antifa and their like, and the looters, the immoral and the amoral. That's who Biden's, so run on that. Go ahead and run on. We're for the immoral and the amoral. There's your campaign slogan. Trump warned protesters about the prospect of ominous weapons and the most vicious dogs. You could say it's whatever you want, but he's telling them, at least he's warning them, saying, look, you keep doing what you're doing, and it's coming. It's coming. But it's amazing, man. But said Harold Schottenberger, president of the Internet, that this part will close on this. It irritates me to no end. Said Harold Schottenberger, president of International Association of Firefighters and longtime Biden ally, said that's the whole purpose, to say, here's who I am and here's the leadership this country needs right now. Talking about Biden. Let me just say this. Shame on you, sir. Read his whole quote. Read the whole article. We're going to move on real quick here in a minute. Shame on you for, as the head of the firefighters, for calling out the president while your own members couldn't get to places like that church because of thugs in the street. And I'm not talking about peaceful protesters. I'm talking about those anarchists in the street burning, and firefighters couldn't get there. For God's sakes, in D.C. itself, the AFL-CIO, which we know who they're for, their leadership anyway, and the teachers union buildings were burned as well. And you're up there saying, oh, this is leadership. Oh, my God, give me a break. All right, we only got about 3 or 4 minutes left. I got to get into this last story because it just warms my heart. Sheriff Grady Judd extends curfew, warns rumored neighborhood rioters that residents are armed. This is from WFLA Channel 8. The Polk County Sheriff's Office has extended the county's curfew another night following a weekend of unrest and criminal activity. If you haven't heard, I want to say his name carefully, Grady Judd, Gradyjudd. He's the sheriff. He's the real sheriff of Polk County. Polk County is kind of between and the main city there is Lakeland, Florida. It's essentially on I-4, about halfway roughly between Tampa and Orlando on I-4, to give you some idea. This guy is unbelievable. We're going to post his entire video. I didn't want to play a snippet of it because it's too good. It's about 8 or 10 minutes long. I will post it on my Facebook site later today. John Martin Talks. Go directly there and check it out. But here's what he said in part of it that stood out. It's making some national attention. The death of George in Minneapolis at the hands of the police officer was outrageous. Had the police officer done here what he did there, he would have been locked up in the county jail, period. And he said, but Minneapolis is not Polk County. He said, and I want to say unequivocally, the community here is unbelievable. And I want to get to this part right here. He did this by saying at the end, he said, I will tell them if you come to people's houses, he's talking about if you come and try to attack people here in Polk County, he said, I would tell them if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be inside their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes tonight and try to steal, to set fires, hold on, snowflakes, because the melting is coming. He said, I am highly recommending they blow you back out the house with their guns. So he's telling them, I'm telling the people of Polk County to shoot you, man, if you try to come in their house. Hey, I want to say it for my city of Hawthorne, too. Let me just say, Grady Judd, brother, Grady Judd for president. Once Donald Trump is through, we need to run this guy, and Donald Trump ought to put him in his administration. Let me just say this one last thing in case you want to know about Grady Judd. He first came on the national scene when a guy shot one of his deputies, killed one of his deputies. They found the dude, and he was shot 65 times, I think was the number. And CNN went down there and asked the sheriff, said, why did you shoot that guy 65 times? And Grady Judd looked him right in the camera and said, because we ran out of bullets. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks, like it, share it with others. Check out our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. We all should pray for our beloved nation. Above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.